You are watching World News broadcast to you live from Algiers with me, your host Mariam Zian. To the headlines. The African Conference on Local Pharmaceutical Production and Health Technologies kicks off in Algiers with President Tebboune calling it the pharmaceutical industry and a strategic national priority. The World Health Organization hails Algeria as a model to follow in global pharma manufacturing. Coming up next, the Zionist war machine continues its war on occupied Palestine. 14 Palestinians were killed in the past 24 hours. Thousands of Palestinians are forcibly displaced in the West Bank, while Palestine praises Algeria's substantial amendments aimed at safeguarding Palestinian rights through the latest UN Security Council resolution on Gaza. And Putin says the American plan could serve as a basis for future agreements. Conditions a halt to fighting on Ukraine's withdrawal from territories claimed by Moscow, and dismisses allegations of Russia intending to attack Europe as absurd. Hello and welcome back. First, in our news, Algeria's Prime Minister Sifiri has supervised the opening ceremony of the African Ministerial Conference on Local Pharmaceutical Production and Health Technologies, the International Conference Center west of Algiers, on Thursday. The opening ceremony was attended by ministers and representatives of the pharmaceutical industry and healthcare sectors from more than 15 countries. The event is expected to conclude with the Algiers Declaration, which will include recommendations aimed at achieving continental integration in the pharmaceutical industry to ensure Africa's health sovereignty. The Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune, in a message read by Prime Minister Sifiri, called for developing resilient healthcare systems across Africa to ensure access to safe, effective, and affordable pharmaceutical products. He emphasized that the Algiers Conference seeks to strengthen the continent's pharmaceutical industry and promote equitable access to medicines and vaccines for all.
إن تنظيم هذا المؤتمر بالجزائر بالتنسيق.
The organization of this conference in Algeria, in coordination with the World Health Organization, aims to strengthen pharmaceutical industries in Africa to ensure equitable access to medicines and vaccines for all the peoples of the continent through resilient health systems and the ability to access safe, effective, and affordable pharmaceutical products.
President Tebboune stressed that Algeria's hosting of the African Conference on Local Pharmaceutical Production came following the World Health Organization's selection of Algeria, considering the significant progress achieved in the pharmaceutical industry.
تلتقون اليوم في هذا المؤتمر الوزاري الإفريقي.
You are meeting today at this African Ministerial Conference on Local Production of Medicines and Other Health Technologies, hosted by Algeria, following its selection by the World Health Organization based on several considerations, foremost among which the achievements and reforms accomplished in Algeria's pharmaceutical industry and the qualitative leap this sector is witnessing. Algeria possesses more than one-third of the pharmaceutical manufacturers on the African continent. Out of 649 factories in Africa, around 230 are located in Algeria, in addition to more than 100 new projects currently underway.
President Tebboune stated that Algeria has made the pharmaceutical industry a strategic national priority to enhance health security, while boosting locally produced medicines to cover more than 80% of the national demand. Let's take a listen.
Algeria has chosen to make the pharmaceutical industry a strategic sector and a national priority in the pursuit of health security. Since 2020, it has dedicated an autonomous ministry to this sector, working to implement deep structural reforms that include developing the regulatory framework, facilitating investment, and encouraging companies, in addition to supporting research and development, thus increasing the rate of national coverage by locally produced medicines to more than 80%, along with a growing trend towards exporting to African markets.
And WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus affirmed that Algeria is a model at both the African and global levels in the pharmaceutical sector. In a recorded address broadcast during the opening ceremony of the African Ministerial Conference on Pharmaceutical Production and Health Technologies, he expressed hope that African countries would benefit from Algeria's pioneering experience.
My sincere gratitude to His Excellency President Abdelmajid Tebboune for hosting this important ministerial conference. And I commend Algeria for its strong commitment to local production. With more than 230 manufacturers, Algeria now produces 82% of its needs locally, the highest in Africa, in our continent. You are an example for the rest of Africa and the rest of the world. And we hope that this ministerial conference will be an opportunity for other countries to learn from your experience and your example.
And at the African Ministerial Conference on Local Pharmaceutical Production, workshops kicked off Thursday in Algiers, bringing together ministers and experts to strengthen Africa's pharmaceutical sector, improve regulatory systems, boost local medicine production, and ensure safe, effective, and affordable health products.
We're already seeing in African continents promoting local production to safeguard the health securities is shared by almost, if we not say all the member states, right? Almost all the member states. This is the way we need to go to keep our national, regional sovereignty and keep our health security.
This conference in Algeria is the first of its kind, bringing together various stakeholders in the pharmaceutical industry. So, for example, we've got regulators, we've got manufacturers, we've got ministers who will all contribute to the health sector. So, from this conference, I'm expecting that we will come up with one position on local production. The World Health Organization, through its regulatory system strengthening program, has been building capacity of African countries or regulatory systems in African countries and globally, actually. But I mean, since this conference is on Africa, I would like to highlight that we have 9 countries in Africa so far that have achieved what we call maturity level 3, which shows that their system is stable, it's well functioning, and it's integrated.
82% of Algeria's medicines are now produced locally, but the country is not stopping there. We explore how it is growing, or how its growing pharmaceutical industry is aiming to shape the future of health in Algeria and beyond with Mohamed Khater.
Algeria's pharmaceutical industry is witnessing a rapid strategic transformation that reflects an official commitment to strengthening national health security by increasing local production and reducing imports. This commitment is endorsed by the World Health Organization's selection of Algeria to host the African Ministerial Conference on Local Production of Medicines and African Health Technologies.
إن تنظيم هذا المؤتمر بالجزائر بالتنسيق.
The organization of this conference in Algeria, in coordination with the World Health Organization, aims to strengthen pharmaceutical industries in Africa to ensure equitable access to medicines and vaccines for all the peoples of the continent through resilient health systems and the ability to access safe, effective, and affordable pharmaceutical products.
Official statistics indicate that the number of pharmaceutical production units reached 233, including 138 specialized in manufacturing medicines, representing more than a third of pharmaceutical companies in the African continent. This allowed Algeria to cover more than 82% of the needs of the Algerian market, leading to a decrease in Algeria's import bill from $1.25 billion in 2022 to $515 million in 2024, with expectations of a continued decline during the current year.
It's true that CITL plays an important role in supporting the state's policy aimed at ensuring health security. We seek to develop the list of our current products, which includes more than 245 products.
The company of Diagnoform is operating in the field of medical analysis and lab medical equipment. We are active in both the private and public sectors, and thank God we are present in the 58 countries' provinces, and we cover the national territory in terms of medical scans and other medical equipment.
A wise government policy has been formulated by Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune by encouraging investment in pharmaceutical production through stimulating the public and private sectors to cover the country's needs for medicines and open up to foreign markets through a strategy based on exporting pharmaceutical products abroad, especially to African countries.
The president of the Pan-African Parliament, Chief Fortune Jarambira, arrived in Algeria, the start of a 5-day official visit to participate in the international conference on colonial crimes in Africa hosted by Algeria. Upon his arrival at Houari Boumediene International Airport, he was received by Rabah Baghali, Vice President of the Algerian Council of the Nation. A statement issued by Algeria's Senate said the conference reflects Algeria's commitment to strengthen cooperation with the Pan-African Parliament, supporting continental efforts to defend memory and confront the legacy of colonialism.
I've come, yes, to participate in the conference on addressing the crimes that are associated with colonialism or the past of Africa. You know very well, including Algeria, you know how you also suffered and how you were deprived and how many things or wealth was taken out of this country and any other country across the continent. It's a fight that we have to join hands as a continent, including the diaspora. As you are aware, the African Union this year made a theme that is meant to address injustices of the past, crimes of the past, and that there should be compensation, there should be restoration, there should be reparations from those countries that perpetuated those crimes during slavery, during colonialism.
The Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune has received Mohammed Al-Mamoun Al-Qasimi Al-Hassani, Director of the Great Mosque of Algiers, according to a statement of the presidency.
This evening, I was honored to be received by the President in this blessed meeting. I presented to him what has been accomplished by the grace of Allah at the Great Mosque of Algiers, through its institutions and bodies, and through its mission, the mission of the Great Mosque of Algiers, a civilizational mission, in line with the vision expressed by the President on the day of the mosque's inauguration. By the grace of Allah, all these institutions have begun implementing their programs, and some have already started executing these programs exactly as planned.
And Algeria hosted the 13th meeting of the Council of Defense Ministers and the 14th meeting of the Chief of Staff Committee of the Member States of the North African Regional Capability, which includes Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Mauritania, and the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. The meetings held at the Army Club west of Algiers focused on reviewing the mechanism's activities for 2025 and studying ways to develop its components with the aim of strengthening coordination among member states to confront threats to the region's security and stability. And General Said Shingriha, Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, held talks with Dmitry Shugayev, Director of the Federal Service for Military Technical Cooperation of the Russian Federation. They discussed the progress of military and technical cooperation between the two countries, as well as issues of mutual interest. A statement from the Algerian Ministry of Defense published Thursday said the meeting was attended by heads of directorates and central officials from the ministry and the general staff, as well as members of the Russian delegation. Moving on to the Palestinian file, in the past 24 hours, only 14 Palestinians were killed in Gaza, including 5 newly reported victims, while 9 bodies were recovered and brought to hospitals, the Ministry of Health confirmed on Thursday. The Ministry of Health, or the Palestinian Ministry of Health, also confirmed that since the beginning of the war on Gaza, 69,799 deaths were recorded. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees UNRWA said Thursday that Israel is carrying out forced displacement operations against residents of refugee camps in the occupied West Bank. UNRWA stated that occupation forces forcibly displaced around 32,000 Palestinians after emptying the Jenin, Tulkarem and Nur al-Shams camps in the occupied West Bank, and those residents were not allowed to return to their areas.
The Israeli military operation has continued since yesterday morning and is escalating. There has been an increase in arrests today. The water network in Tamun has been destroyed. The mayor of Tamun has been arrested. Many homes, we're talking about 30, have been evacuated. These are displaced families, and the occupation forces have used their homes as military barracks. This violates international conventions and the Fourth Southern Intifada, which stipulates the protection of civilians under occupation and prohibits tampering with water networks and the sanctity of the places of worship, such as churches and mosques. Therefore, since yesterday, the Prime Minister, acting on instructions from the President, has activated the Central Emergency Committee in the Governorate to assess the suffering of the citizens and respond to their pleas for help.
And Yunus al-Khatib, president of the Palestinian Red Crescent, said the Israeli occupation is targeting civilians and medical teams in Tubas, blocking ambulances and committing repeated violations against civilians that amount to war crimes.
What we are witnessing, the obstruction of ambulances, the prevention of patients from reaching hospitals, the targeting of civilians with beatings and arrests, all these actions violate the law, and many even constitute war crimes against civilians or against Red Crescent and ambulance crews. This is what we have witnessed in the Gaza Strip for 2 years, and this is what we are witnessing in all the governorates of the homeland, and what we are witnessing today in Tubas.
وهذا ما نشهده في كافة محافظات الوطن ونشهده اليوم في طوباس.
Hamas confirmed that over 94 Palestinian detainees have died in Israeli prisons since the start of the war on Gaza, warning that the prisons are being used as killing grounds in a systematic campaign against prisoners.
The human rights statistics confirming the martyrdom of more than 94 Palestinian detainees inside occupation prisons since the start of the genocide in the Gaza Strip reflect a systemic criminal policy that has turned prisons into direct killing grounds aimed at eliminating our people. We warn of the grave danger facing our brave prisoners who are being subjected to inhumane violations documented by first-hand testimonies and credible human rights reports, including severe beatings, burning with boiling water, attacks by dogs, as well as sexual assaults.
In Palestine's UN Ambassador Riyad Mansour praised Algeria's key amendment to the latest Security Council resolution on Palestine, saying they protect Palestinian rights and won broad support. He noted that Algeria continued making essential changes until the last moment, even after the joint statement by 8 Arab and Islamic countries and the US supporting the resolution.
Regarding the recent resolution, Algeria, on behalf of Palestine and the Arab group, submitted a number of Algerian amendments to uphold Palestinian rights. Together with Somalia and with the support of Pakistan, these amendments received wide support from the members of the Council, and some were incorporated into the text, while others were not. Algeria continued until the very last moment its efforts to introduce amendments to the text, including in its national capacity, even after the statement was issued by the 8 Arab and Islamic states together with the United States working on their resolution.
بعد صدور بيان الدول الثمانية العربية والإسلامية مع الولايات المتحدة دعما للقرار.
And the International Trade Union Conference for Solidarity with the Sahrawi people condemned any attempt to undermine their right to self-determination, calling it a serious violation of international law. In a joint statement concluding their Paris conference, they reaffirmed unconditional support for the Sahrawi people's freedom, self-determination, and full sovereignty over their land and resources.
We reaffirm our constant and conditional support for the Sahrawi people's inalienable and imprescriptible right to self-determination, freedom, and full sovereignty over their land and natural resources. We strongly affirm that the Sahrawi people are the sole and legitimate holders of sovereignty over Western Sahara, and that no state, organization, or group of states has the authority to limit, condition, or usurp this sovereignty. Any initiative aimed at circumventing this fundamental right or imposing solutions that contradict the principles of the United Nations Charter and the Constitutive Act of the African Union constitute a serious violation of international law.
The International Trade Union Conference for Solidarity with the Sahrawi people reiterated its rejection of all attempts to promote approaches or solutions to the Sahrawi conflict outside of the framework of decolonization. The International Trade Union's meeting in Paris condemned the European Commission's decision to move forward with adopting a new agreement with the Moroccan occupying power aimed at illegally exploiting the natural resources of Western Sahara.
Our presence here is intended to express the solidarity of the African workers with the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination, fundamental right enshrined in the Charter and Constitution of the Organization of African Trade Union Unity. Therefore, we are here to unite the voice of African workers with that of workers and trade unions worldwide who uphold the right to self-determination and who defend the cause of freedom, peace, and a dignified life.
And Algeria emphasized that fighting human trafficking requires unified global efforts and stronger international cooperation. Speaking at the UN General Assembly session on the Global Plan of Action, Deputy Permanent Representative Toufiq Al-Aid Koudri stressed that the cross-border nature of this crime calls for intensified cooperation and greater information sharing. The African Union condemned the military coup in Guinea-Bissau, calling it a blatant disruption of the democratic process, demanding the immediate release of President Embalo and other detained officials. It urged all parties to show restraint, and the United Nations also voiced deep concern, with Secretary General Antonio Guterres calling on all actors to respect the rule of law and avoid further escalation. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that the American plan regarding Ukraine could serve as a basis for future agreements. During a press conference held at the end of his official visit to the Kyrgyz capital Bishkek on Thursday, Putin stressed that Moscow is ready to seriously discuss the U.S. plan, provided it is translated into diplomatic language, as he put it.
Нужно все положить на дипломатический язык. We discussed with U.S. negotiators before my visit to Alaska. Afterwards, the 28-point list was formed, as I've already said publicly. It was given to us through certain channels. We studied this document. Following that, the U.S.-Ukraine negotiations took place in Geneva. As I understand, they decided that all 28 points should be grouped into 4 separate components. We received all the information. In general, we agree that the US-backed peace plan can be used as a basis for future agreements, but it will be impolite on my part to speak about the final versions because there are none.
The Russian president linked Moscow's halting of what it calls its military operations in Ukraine to Kiev agreeing to withdraw from the territories claimed by Russia.
If Ukrainian forces do not withdraw from the designated territories, Russia will achieve this by force. Russian and Ukrainian intelligence services have always maintained contact, even during the most difficult times, and this is what they're doing now. They're working to resolve a number of humanitarian issues, particularly those related to the exchange of prisoners of war.
And U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday that the attack targeting National Guard forces near the White House amounted to a terrorist act. Trump explained in remarks from Florida that the shooting suspect is a foreign national who entered the country from Afghanistan, calling for a review of all foreigners who entered the U.S. during the Biden administration and for measures to remove anyone who does not belong in this country or does not contribute to it, as he put it.
My great fellow Americans, earlier today, on the eve of the Thanksgiving holiday, 2 members of the National Guard serving in Washington, D.C., were shot at point-blank range in a monstrous ambush-style attack just steps away from the White House. This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's program. Thanks for watching and have a great night.